Welcome to another chapter of outdoor living space and designing it using SoftPlan. In the previous chapter, we took the time to go in and define the outdoor kitchen to the left-hand side, and in that design we specified cabinets. We had a outdoor wall that was defined using a stone veneer, and we're going to use that as kind of our leaping off point for creating a seating area that's going to be on the right hand portion or patio of our backyard that we're working with here. Currently, we're reviewing the model in a textured mode, and as has been typical for most of this lesson, we're going to take the 3D textured and return it to a shaded mode. It's more about working with volume and shapes right now than it is concentrating or focusing on the actual textures that will be used. Once this has been done, we'll change into the site plan mode, and the site plan mode is going to allow us to, at this stage, focus on where we're going to do the drawing. Selecting File and Drawing options will allow us to define a wall that is specific to this drawing itself. Conversely, if we were to define a wall through the system options, at that stage then the wall would actually be a system-wide change for all new projects going forward. And so because this is going to pertain to only this drawing and not necessarily the entire project, we can go in through File, Drawing Options, and Drawing Options. From the Drawing Options menu, if we select the Define Wall and then select Edit, we can actually open up into the Wall Definition menu for this drawing. Upon selecting Edit, we'll see the wall definition list there, and as we scroll down to the bottom of the list, we'll see our 4-inch stone veneer wall that we created for the kitchen surround. Highlighting on this wall and selecting Save As will allow us to make a copy of it and rename it to the 8-inch stone veneer. Likewise, we can redo the Save As and make a secondary copy to call it a 16-inch veneer. Once both walls have been created, we can go in and modify the width of the stone veneer to 8 inches and 16 inches respectively. Select OK to close back to the site plan drawing. Now what we want to do is basically draw the two 16-inch veneer columns that are going to bookend what will eventually be the curved part of the seating area. And so selecting Draw Wall and selecting the 16-inch veneer wall, we can click to start the wall, and then using the F12 function key, unlock the cursor and draw it from lower left to upper right. Once the wall has been placed, we can then use the Move command to move it into place. Move and rotate item and cycling through the F12 lock will allow us to freely rotate the column into place relative to the curb on the drawing. With the column in place at this stage, and of course simply sketched in, the next thing that we could do is actually go in and dimension it accordingly. Using the Adjust command allows for the display of temporary dimensions, and so a combination of mouse movement and cursor options could be used, or using the dimension and extension options, we can go in and draw an exact dimension so that we can then edit this dimension and change it exactly to 16 inches in length. Of course, the wall was defined with a 16-inch width, so we now know that we have a 16 by 16 column. If we want to do the same thing on the other side using the same Draw Wall command, we can simply click to start, sketch the direction for the wall, and click to finish. Once again, using the Move command, we can move it into place, and in the same way that we rotated it on the other side of the patio, we can do the same thing here to get it so that it is set in line with the curve of the outside edge of the curb. Using the same dimension options, we can pull extensions from the actual column itself. Dimension point will allow us to dimension between 2 points bypassing the curb and the sight lines, and then we can actually key in the dimension of 16 inches and hit the left arrow key to set the column to its exact length that is needed. An edit of the wall will show us that the current height of 1'6" needs to be changed to 2 feet in order to get it to the correct height for what our design calls for. Additionally, while we're here, when you draw with walls, they will oftentimes clean up to one another. And what that's called is our wall joint tolerance, so that if a wall is within 6 inches of another wall, those two will automatically adjust their length to find the other wall. And so in this case, you can see the wall joint is actually earmarked by the oval type shapes that are on the drawing screen right now. Because we're going to be bringing another wall in to meet with this wall, we want to set the joint tolerances to 0. That will allow us to butt walls together on the actual site plan rather than have them mitering together and forming an irregular shape for this design. And so after I've done this to the rightmost column, I will simply right click on the left one and select Repeat Edit. A quick edit of the wall shows the 2-foot height and shows the joint tolerance is now set at 0, clearing the way for us to be able to eventually draw walls that will butt to one another on this design. To do so, we'll select Draw, Curved Wall, Start and Radius. And this command literally dictates what you need to do. Is upon selecting the command and the wall that you want to draw with, you're going to click for the start point, then click for the end point of the specific wall, and then from there you will set the radius. And so in this case, once I've selected the wall type, I can scroll the list of walls available and pick my 8-inch stone veneer that we already defined. And so click OK on that, I will now position my cursor towards the midpoint of my column and click. I'm going to move my cursor clear across to the midpoint of the column on the other side and click, and then I can set my radius as to where I want to place this wall. And of course this will be editable after the fact as well. And so once I have this set up here, I can now edit this specific wall and now modify or make changes to it. So initially, the first thing that I'm going to do is just what we did with the columns on either end, which is to set the tolerance to 0. Otherwise, this wall is going to attempt to miter into those columns there, and we really want it to butt against that. And while we're here, we're going to lower the height on this to be something a little bit less than what we have. And so rather than the 21 inches, we'll type in, let's say, and so once we've done that, we'll also go to the wall height and we're going to just lower it down by just a few inches from what we already have for the columns and click OK. And so as I take a look at this inside the 3D shaded, I now have this lower wall running across here at 21 inches in height, and then I have these columns which have been set at a 24-inch height. And of course, all of that is completely flexible, and we could change and make the columns higher if we wanted to, etc. So as I take a look at this inside the site now, I'll be able to move, this wall if I wanted to have it, closer or lining up to the actual outline of the patio that's running around here. I would be able to edit this wall, and you could actually change what the deflection is going to be on this. And so if I wanted to make it more or less, you simply just edit that and change it to whatever it needs to be as far as the deflection in order to get it to align with the actual curve. And of course the easiest thing to do on this would be to go in and actually edit the patio and see what it has for the for its own deflection and or radius. And so in my case, I'm just going to move this into place, and then once I have that there, using the adjust item feature, I can adjust this back to match or meet with the actual stone pillars on either end. And so having done that at this point now, the next thing that I want to do is actually come in and create the stone caps that are going to go on first the columns, and then to follow the actual seating area on the curved wall that's here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a countertop option for this. And by default, SawPlan ships with 20 different finishes for countertops. and it's probable that you're not going to use some of the ones that are lower down, countertops 18, 19, 20. And so I'm going to actually use one of these for the capstone on the wall itself. And this will allow me to, in particular with the columns, to actually have an equal overhang on all sides, and in order to do this. And so if I come in through draw and I select cabinet and I were to select countertop, and let's just say I'm going to position my cursor where I want it to go, and I want it to have a 3-inch overhang on a 16-inch base. And so basically what I'm looking to do then is run this 22 inches left to right, and then another 22 inches down, and so on. And so you can just literally sketch this in, or and dimension it after the fact, okay, or just using the tape measure in a combination. You just simply I'm just going to draw this in. And so once I've drawn this in, I can select the item extensions, and I could literally just pull my dimensions off of this and set it up for exactly the 22 inches that I want. And I'll do the same thing over here. And once this is done, and I'll save this, I'm going to go to Move, and I'm going to select an option called Make Parallel. And when I select this, I can pick this, column, which is at an angle that really isn't measurable, so to speak, at 210.89 degrees, and then I can click the edge of the column I just drew and have it, align that edge to be parallel. And so I'm just going to come in through item erase and remove these dimensions for right now, just to get them out of the way. And I can now move this on top of where the column is placed. And I'm doing a little bit of this by eye, although I could certainly pull dimensions and or just move this once I get this into place, to see where I want it. And then the last thing I'd probably do here is just come in through edit, and I'm going to change the material down to concrete finish 20, which I'll reserve for my capstone, and I'm going to give it an offset that is going to be, the 24 inches to set on top. And so as I take a look at this inside the 3D, we now have our capstone sitting there. And so I'm just going to copy that and place it over here to go with that. And so if I come back into the site plan, I can select the copy. We're going to copy this over to this column that's over here using the move and make parallel. I can select this edge and then this edge, and then finally I can move this, and you'll be able to relate this to just about anything that you draw with. So for example, if you are setting up a site plan drawing that you've got, and you need to have a sidewalk run parallel to the easement or to the actual edge of the property, then by all means you could pick the make parallel, select the edge of the property, and then select the sidewalk and have that conform to it. The other thing that I could have done, which was part of the wall definition menu, was I could have just come in and edited this to have a capstone on top of the wall. The reason that I didn't do this here is this wall was actually drawn from this point and then drawn towards the upper right hand corner. And so while I could have given it an overhang on these two sides, running from lower left to upper right, the two ends would actually not have had an overhang on them because they would have just run the length of the wall. And that's why I went ahead and used the countertop. Now, down the road, what I would tell you to do is long term, you would go in through File and System Options, and I would recommend that at that stage you go into Finish Options, and you'll be able to select Countertop Options. And here you can actually rename this. So I could change this to, concrete, for example. And that would be the name of the material that I'm using. And so you could see literally option number 20 could have been reserved for capstones and so on. Okay, so I'll click OK on that and say saving the changes. And now every project going forward is going to adhere to that. So with the capstones on these two end walls here, we may want to come in and also add something here. And so we could use the countertop, but this may be just as easy to edit the wall a second time. Go in and place a top on this wall, or a capstone on it, okay, so that we don't have to try and match the radius on it. Plus, we're not concerned about having an overhang on either end of the wall. And so if I select and edit this stone veneer, and I come into the definition on it, we'll see our 8-inch stone veneer with the wall height of 18 inches. And so I'm going to change that overall height to 21 inches. Now currently this wall has a horizontal start of 0, which is to say that the outside edge of the wall is sitting, at 0. And if we want to have a 3-inch overhang on either side of this, then we need to move this base 3 inches in from the outside. So that basically our overhang of our capstone will be at 0, 3-inch overhang, intersects with the 8-inch stone wall, and then we'll have a 3-inch overhang on the other side. And so with this having been done, I'm going to, and modifying the height of this to be 18 inches because we don't want it to have the same height as the overall wall, I can now add a material to this, and we're going to change this to, let's say, that we want to put it in as concrete. And so I'll come in here to concrete B and click OK on that. We're going to make the width the 8 inches plus 6 inches on either side, so it's a 14-inch width, and we're going to give it a 3-inch height. Currently you can see the material is actually sitting to the right of our wall, and so let's set the horizontal start to 0, and then we're going to move the vertical 18 inches up so it sits on top of the base. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that material. And so when I fix that material, it means that if this wall height changes, this specific material will hold fast to the default height that was there. And so with this set, I will click OK and click OK on this. And when I go into the, as I edit this wall now, okay, it's now going to, have a wall height still of the 21 inches, and it's actually going to now, if I take a look at it inside 3D, and so upon exiting back to the plan itself, okay, and this is our stone veneer wall that we've got right here, we will actually see in the preview, it's actually got the capstone right there. And as I move into the 3D, we can see that we actually have that, option. And so changing this into the textured mode for just a moment, we can see we've got our concrete material with our stone wall, and in this case here, using a surface copy paste, I can adhere the same material to the top of that wall. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually come in here now and place our gas lanterns, if we will, on top of this. And so within the site plan mode, if I come in through draw and electrical and pick my electrical symbols, I'm going to be able to come in at this stage now and so now what I can do is inside the actual drawing mode, come in through draw, electrical symbols, and under exterior lights I can select the the light that we want to use. Let's say this lamp post light that we've got here, and once again I can position my cursor where I want to draw this and add it to the actual columns. And so now I can just move this into place as needed, and so I'll just select the move option, remove my lock, and position it over the actual base itself, and do the same thing here. Just select the actual lamp post and move, and remove, taking the F12 function key off, be able to see what we've got. And so as I look at this inside 3D, we have it here, and these could actually, I'm going to come in and actually just make these a little bit smaller as far as their size is concerned. So upon editing the light, I'm going to select the maintain aspect ratio, which is to say, as I change the overall dimension of the lamp, it's going to actually change the other corresponding dimensions to go with it, to keep its everything in relation to one another. So with that done, the next step that we're going to do is actually come in and create a custom fireplace that's going to be placed in this patio here. And so using we're actually going to, for the sake of this lesson, go outside soft plan and bring a symbol in to utilize on this. And so if I drag onto my screen right here, I've actually taken the time to go to 3D Warehouse, okay, which is basically a library that hosts tens of thousands of symbols that are actually available for download and use in SoftPlan, as well as other CAD programs. So in this case here, what we can do is I've taken the time to go and find a actual manufacturer's wood/gas fire pit, and we're going to download that and then import it into SoftPlan. And so you're going to simply come in and you're just going to download the model of where you want to save this. And so in this case here, once you select the SketchUp model to save, you will pick the Save As and then determine where you want to save it. So in my case here on my desktop, I've already created a folder for where I want to drop this. You'll see I've got a couple of different fire pit options that are going to be available there, and so I would just simply click the Save button and save, to that file. Once I have done that, then the next step is to actually bring it into SoftPlan. And so I'm going to go into the site plan mode to create this. I'm going to come in through File, and I'm going to select System Options, and in this case System Library. And so when I do this, I'll open up the Configure Library menu that is available there. And so in my case, I'm actually going to create a new library, and we're just going to call it, according to what we're doing here, Outdoor Living as the name of our library, and I'll click OK. And so this library has been created, alphabetically added to the list, and it has actually nothing available, in it right now. And so I will come with that library highlighted, select the wizard option. And when I do this, it prompts what library is going to be put in, and in this case now, I can go in and actually key in what the name of this, fire pit is going to be. And so I will keep with the listing that was there, okay, and we'll put wood, as far as our options concerned, and then we'll click the next option. Now currently I don't have the symbol on my screen, and so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to select no for it being on my screen and select next. At this stage then I want to import the 3D symbol, and so I'll click on this and I need to browse to where I put this symbol. And so if I go to my desktop, I will be able to come in to my outdoor or my 3D Google Warehouse and my outdoor living folder in order to create or find where that symbol is, and then open it. When I do this, I can drop it into a symbol folder, or in my case I'm going to call this Outdoor Living once again as where I'm going to store this, and so it'll be stored in the 3D symbol folder by this name, and press OK. And so once I do this, the symbol is then imported. It's imported as far as with all of the textures that were assigned by whoever created this at the warehouse. And so once this has been set up, I can then click next. At this stage, this is one of the more important steps that you're going to come across, and it's really the orientation of the symbol. You want to make sure that when you go to draw the symbol, everything is correct for what you're attempting to do. And so, because it will impact when you go to draw a symbol. If you have the wrong side earmarked as the front, you'll wind up drawing symbols inverted to what you want, which will force you to have to do an edit with them. In my case, I'm going to say no just to take you through the steps. This symbol, of course, is completely symmetrical, so it wouldn't really have mattered front from left or even back and right. But if we say no and we click next, the options that will be presented to you is which is the top of the symbol. And obviously if I made this selection, the bottom would now become the top, and vice versa. So we really do want to make sure we select the correct option and press the next button. And this is where you can then go through and then select where the front side is going to be and click next, and it will prompt you where the left side is, and so on, until you've actually nailed down all of the sides of the symbol. In this part of the setting up the symbol or its layers is where you get to select where the textures or what textures are going to be used. And so once you have done this, I will pick the next option, and you can see this is my symbol. The dimensions are as the symbol was created. So typically if these come from a manufacturer, they're going to be exact. Whether that is a fire pit or whether that is an outdoor grill and so on, everything is going to be exactly to their specifications. In our case, we'll assume that we're going to work from theirs, that this is the sizing and dimensioning. So we will click next on this. And the last thing that we need to do now is determine where it's going to be referenced. And so in my case, I can reference it to the ground, to the floor. If it were a stackable symbol, like something like, let's say, a sink would stack to a countertop, for example. Or if this was something we're going to be putting in an interior of, say, a sunroom, and we wanted that fixture to go to the ceiling, then we would measure it from there. And so in my case here, I can select ground or floor depending on what we're going to be adhering this to, and then we can even move the dimension up or down. Once I've done all of this, I will select the next option, and I'm going to click the generate button. And what the generate button is going to do for me is actually create the 2D symbol. And so this is the beauty of this is by using the wizard, it looks at the 3-dimension. It, based on your orientation, it's now looking at from the top down. So if you got that modified correct, you're going to get a top down symbol. Now again, there's not a lot to this symbol per se from the top down, but we click next and then select finish. And so as we come into the draw symbol option, we will have this at our disposal to draw now. I can position my cursor where I want the symbol to be drawn, and at this stage I can click to start and click to finish. And as I do that and take a look at it, we can now see what the symbol is going to look like on our patio. Okay, and the best part about this is it's actually going to be using all of their default properties and settings as far as that is concerned. And so once that has been placed, you could see where the benefit of having this at your disposal, because we could go into those same libraries, for example, and we took the time to create a custom kitchen earlier, but we could have actually gone in and pulled from their listing one of their custom symbols and input that directly into SoftPlan. So it's really just that simple in order to get that done. And so with the fire pit set and the walls set, as far as for the patio, I may just come in and add a little bit of furniture to flesh this out. So using draw and selecting symbol, I could drill all the way down to the landscape forms and select chairs. Here you'll see that I've got a couple of SoftPlan Plus style chairs, and so I could click to insert one chair on one side and then do the same thing on the other. I could return and select from the benches that are available. So we've got a host of those, and just determining what we want as far as that style is concerned. I'm going to stick with the same manufacturer, and so once again I could place one of those in on the actual drawing and even just move it after the fact. Okay, and then lastly, returning to the same SoftPlan Plus list of libraries, we've got a host of different tables that are available, and so we could set up some sort of a table that could be used on the patio as well. And lastly, just just for a little bit of fun, went into the symbols, and if I go back down to my outdoor living, in the same way that I added the Wexford fire pit, I've gone just to the same library and I've grabbed the outdoor tiki torch, if you will, and so we could certainly go ahead and we could place these either around the outside or also on the patio itself. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add a few of those in on the perimeter, and then we could add a couple just in the corners, nothing dimensionally speaking, just getting those set. And so as we take a look at this in 3D, we can see the torches, the furniture, and our fire pit that we have created. And so that brings to a conclusion what we're doing in this lesson of creating outdoor living space. And so there was a lot that went into it. Just to recap, we used the wall definition in order to create this wall with a cap on it. To create the section that was going to be the pillars on the end, we went ahead and created our block walls, and then we inserted the kind of the gas lanterns that are here. And recall that we edited those and we changed the dimension on them, and by keeping the ratio also checked, we were able to, make those smaller. And once again, I've just gone through and done that. We imported the fire pit that's here directly from the Google warehouse, and that's actually also where these lanterns came from, or these tiki torches. And then the SoftPlan Plus library gave us the ability to have this outdoor furniture. And so that brings to a conclusion what we're going to cover in our next class. We're going to take a look at adding a little bit of landscaping, and then we're going to be diving into adding three-dimensional textures, lighting, and putting some finishing touches on this outdoor living space.